Hey beauties! Today we're going to talk about some vegan, gluten-free baking staples, and this vlog comes directly from listening to you guys on the Facebook foods groups and also on Instagram. I've been seeing a lot of questions that you guys have about how to bake in a way that's vegan and gluten-free, and combining these ways of, approaching our baking and just changing things up. I know a lot of us do love to bake. It's fun. Things transform and turn into yummy treats and things that we can really bake in our love. It's a special way of cooking. I admittedly did not grow up baking a lot. I have always liked cookies, but it wasn't something that was really part of my family heritage so much. I grew up, my mother's from the Philippines and our auntie's Filipino and she lived with us. There wasn't so much baking. So for me, the difference in shifting into this way of baking without eggs and dairy and things like, and butter and things like that wasn't so crazy. But I know for a lot of you that grew up where baking was a big part of your family, recipes and holidays and things like that, it can feel like a shift, which is why I want to give you some support today and know that baking can still very much be part of your life. It can be something that you share and do with loved ones, and that you bake the goodies and you also share them with friends and family and colleagues and whoever you want. But we can upgrade, we can shift some of the ingredients a little bit so that you're not interfering with your digestion. You're keeping things clean and, again, gluten-free and just easier on your system as we enjoy these treats. So I'm going to run through a couple of them right now that I like very much. So the first thing is the flours, the base of the baking. I use organic brown rice, millet flour, coconut flour, sorghum flour. And the important thing with gluten-free baking is that you want to mix your gluten-free flours. It will always bind. It will always work better than if you just use one particular type of gluten-free flour. I learned this from a lot of trial and error. So you want to just have a mix. And what I do now is I make a gluten-free baking mix. So I mix a couple of those different flours together and I put them in a Ziploc bag and I shake it. And I keep it so that when I am baking, I just scoop from that and it's already pre-mixed. And that makes it a lot easier than like picking and pulling and doing this and that. You can find these these gluten-free baking powders at places like Whole Foods or health markets or even online. Bob's Mill is a great resource for this, where the company that has a lot of different gluten-free options and alternative flours. So to remember, I would mix at least 3 or 4 when you're making your gluten-free mix, and that will help a lot as your base. Tapioca is a great binder. It's derived from the cassava plant from South America. So tapioca flour and tapioca starch are the same thing, and that's an important binder when you are going gluten-free. Also, arrowroot starch. This also comes from South America. This is a thickener that's used. It's used in not only soup and stew, but also in your baking needs. So certain recipes may call from that. And again, it comes from these South American plants, which are quite hardy and sticky and will work in your baking. Gar gum is also a thickener. This comes from East India. It's the gar gum, gar plant seed. So these are some important binders. There's an ingredient, there's a product I used to use more called Energy Egg Replacer. It's made up mostly of starch, like tapioca starch and potato starch. I used it a lot in the Recipes and Beauty Detox Power, my 3rd book. But what I do more now is some of these other, just like using arrowroot starch on its own, or even, I forgot to say, chickpea flour is a gluten-free flour that has a lot more stickiness and binding quality in and of itself. So if I'm making pancakes, sometimes I just use chickpea flour and that's enough of a binder. So you can mix and you can play. You can look back at a lot of my recipes from Beauty Detox Power where I have some baked recipes and you can see. But these are all great products to stock. A little bit goes a really long way. As far as sweeteners, I often use now for my liquid mostly coconut nectar, just because it's lower glycemic, lower in fructose than agave. I still use stevia. I like to mix stevia and coconut nectar so that it doesn't taste overly bitter. And certain stevia brands are less bitter than others, so you can play. Everybody's taste buds are different. The other powdered sweetener that I'll use sometimes for my baking is coconut sugar, which has more minerals. It's still sugar. It's not like you want to have it every day in huge amounts, but it's something that you can work into your gluten-free baking if you need. I think it's a 1-to-1 ratio with sugar. If you need, something of that quality and not liquid sugar. Let's say you're making a pie or a cake or something like that. So I hope this was helpful. You can see in the transcript below if you're like, how did she spell it, or what is she talking about? And you can see again that these can go a very long way. It's a little bit of a shift if you've been baking your whole life, but I am excited to hear about some of your baking adventures. It can be equally delicious. Again, you're not going to get the bloating effect and some of the really detrimental effect from the binding of the quality, the congestive qualities of having lots of dairy and combined with eggs and all this other stuff. It can be a lot lighter in your system and be processed a lot easier, so you can have your cake and not be bloated, which is of course what I want for you. So thank you so much for joining me. If you have friends and family that you think this would benefit, please go ahead and forward this video to them, which is an amazing way to spread the love, to spread the community. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for being part of our community. I love you. I am here to support you. Keep asking your questions. I am here for you. I will answer them on Facebook Lives or the podcast. So anything that you're wondering, any ways, again, that I can give you more support, more love, I am here every step. I will see you soon. Take care. Lots of love.